Thought we'd start quite light-hearted with Everton's goals for the month, which of course was none. Joined in the studio by Dave Feely to have a little bit of light-heartedness on what has been a depressing season so far. But Dave, you've come in to tell me that everything is good. The manager's great, the owners are great, the team is amazing, and I should smile.
Peace, Toffees, by the way. I haven't came in for any of those things, to be honest. Where do you start with it? This is a 30-year plus problem we're trying to deal with a stick and plaster on not just a broken leg, but 2 amputated legs is what we're trying to do. There's that much wrong, and has been that much wrong, to try and address the back end of it before you address. It's actually it's linear, but it's vertical linear. It's from the top is where you've got to start, because unless you do that, we're going to end up here again in this cycle of destruction. What we've been on this treadmill for too long, far too long. So, yes, there's a problem with the manager. Yes, there's a problem with the style of play. Yes, my biggest problem is the paucity of points. That's the problem. I'm getting sick of going to every single game home and away in August, every season, thinking we need to get 10 points by Christmas. That's not good, because that's what the evidence will show you. That's going to happen. And that's part of the problem. We keep buying players, appointing managers and backroom staff and directors of football in order to tread water. Well, if you were selling beans for Marks and Spencer's, someone would come and tap you on. If you carried on repeating that behaviour, they'd just tap you on the shoulder and say, thanks for your service, you've been great, but going in a different direction, this is not working, patently. Well, we don't. We seem to double down on that. And to address the manager thing, just prima facie, as it were, without going into depth about it, there's no one to sack him. There's no one to make the decision to sack him. So he's not getting sacked. So there's the point, also, sidebar to that, him to come and then start going in press conferences saying, these are worried here, this is what they do here. I mean, are you read the room, mister? Read the goddamn room. It's cause and effect. This is an entertainment business, whether we like it or not. There's no contract. It's not the West End Theatre where you get a happy ending after an hour and a half. That's not the case. However,
Also massage
it
parlours.
remains the entertainment business. People are paying good money, upwards of 50 knicker each, to be entertained for an hour and a half. And you're saying here that the audience isn't good enough, or they don't understand the programme, or the theory behind it all. I'm sorry, mate. Own it yourself. I will be better. It's a problem. I see it. I'll try and solve it. Even if you don't solve it, say I'm going to try and solve it, because at least that is playing to the people who basically effectively pay your wages. So,
has that been, I mean, we just look at some of the things. Big chances created, Everton at bottom. Accurate passes, Everton at bottom, 20th in the division. Long balls, Everton at top.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly. Big chances missed, Everton at third bottom, because they haven't missed any big chances.
Yeah.
Average possession, Everton at bottom.
Yeah.
Goals per game, Everton at 19th out of 20. Touches in the opposition box, they're a high of 13th. Clean sheets, the 4th. That's one positive. So when you see stats like that, 6 points from 6 games at Goodison Park, 1 win, 3 draws, 6 points from away games, second joint lowest goal scorers in the league. The numbers aren't great, are they? 7 wins since December.
I went to Southampton about a month ago, and I actually thought we should have won the game. Despite that, when I got outside, someone showed me the phone. I was telling this lad walking to the coach, me, Kelly and this fella, well, they've changed the ends now, so you're at the opposite end. They made a fan zone at where we used to be, so it's the opposite end, so I didn't really know where we were going.
Yeah.
So we're walking, all of us together, and I'm saying that, well, I've just said to you that if Beto scored the header,
Yeah, we
should
win
have
the
burst
game.
net with it, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
If he scores the header, they don't break, they don't score the goal. Nevertheless, I think it was from here. to be fair. Kid shows me his phone. It said 25% possession. This is against Southampton, who hadn't won a game in the Premier League.
Hardly scored a goal.
Therefore, add that possession thing to what you said about the long ball, which we've got a problem with Calvert-Lewin scoring goals. Never mind, put that to one side. Yet, recognise what I've just said. Then this tactic of Pickford launching the ball to a man who's now outnumbered at least 2, probably 3 to 1, who's then getting the ball a yard above his head to bring it down, to hold it off. Our midfield is that far sitting in defence that it takes them quarter of an hour to get back up to the front. So now what's he supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
And now you're talking about his confidence in front of goal. That bleeds into that. It's just everything about it. I was going to say adjustments. It doesn't need adjustments. It needs upending.
If you knock a long ball, the thing you say to people is run off. Go back as long as you want, right?
Yeah.
Everton have always had a powerful centre forward. I can go back to being a kid and watching Graham Sharp.
He didn't need to, so
he could run, right?
He didn't.
Howard, the greatest manager we ever had. If Everton went a bit direct, you'd have runners. You'd have Trevor Steven on the
100%.
outside, Sharp a jump. You'd have people run. I don't understand the tactic that the team
I think
are trying, because no one's running past Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who wins 94% of his aerial fields.
Absolutely, but also I think we can only imagine, because I've never been there, that whiteboard thing on a Thursday where they're saying, they set it out and they say, this is what we're going to do for them. It's all percentages now, it's all data now. Okay, so that ball from Pickford, say it gets to him, say it's not a yard above his head.
Yeah.
Say it hits his head, he things it up, he's strong, he's got pace, he can worry them.
Yeah.
What's the next stage? So, okay, Ducouré, he swapped this season and put McNeil in that role. But because we're under pressure all the time, even McNeil or Ducouré or anybody else you want to put in that role from our roster will be that deep that it's literally going to take at least 2 minutes for them to get forward in order to... Because all they'll do is close them down. So they don't even have to take the ball off them. They just have to block the pass.
Block the pass off, yeah.
And just be in the way. That's fundamental. I could tell a kid's 12-year-old team how to defend against that. So back to the whiteboard. What's the theory? What is it,
Dave,
then?
I've said before, right, and again, it's whether it's Sean Dyche or it isn't Sean Dyche, right? The average Premier League tenure, I think, is 13 months of a manager. He's now the second longest serving manager after Martinez since David Moyes left 11 years ago.
Is he?
So Martinez 3 years and he's coming up to 2 years. Right? Everyone else, Ancelotti, everyone else less, right? After a period of time, doesn't matter if it's Sean Dyche, if it's whoever else in the Premier League, Hertel at Brighton, whoever.
Yeah.
After a year, say, you should know exactly what. This was my thing with Ten Hag. We do a general footy show, and I'm saying week after week with Ten Hag, I don't know what United are doing. He's been there 2 odd years. I can't see anything. I just see a team going
I said
out.
that with Koeman.
Right, and so Ronald Koeman, similar. Amarim, done his interview after the draw at Ipswich on Sunday. Really impressive interview, but the first 40 seconds were the most impressive overall, because they were talking about the result, and he was like, you don't just play the result. It's like, if you just turn up for a game, as in, you just look at the next game, and you're just playing for that game. He said, I guarantee you in a year's time, you'll still have the same points you got today. You'll still be playing the same way you play today, because it isn't about that. It's about development as a manager. And the one criticism I would have with Sean Dyche is there's no development as a manager of the players. It's here, the game Saturday, and to get that win on Saturday with just playing this team, there's no looking at, let's use Nathan Patterson for argument's sake, because he come back last night, played last night, got sent off for kicking a ball away. Doesn't affect the Premier League and all that, right? But he's never ever looked at him to try to develop him, to get him in. Tim Bunham, I still stand by this, wouldn't have started a single game for Everton this season had James Garner been fit. Not a chance. And I know, speaking to people, that he was going out on loan until the injuries come, right? Things like that, right?
I don't mind him,
so I think he's good. I think he's a good player, and I think with the formation, he'd be good. But what I'm trying to say is, this might be the manager's fault. It might be above the manager. I don't know. But there's been not one single piece of development. No one's gone, we're putting these in, and in 6 weeks, this is what's going to happen.
I agree
and
with
that's
you.
what frustrates me.
I agree with you, virtually vertebrum, everything you've just said. However, like we said off camera before we started, this is an existential crisis. This has been going on for 30 years. We do not, apart from Ancelotti and perhaps Martinez naively for the first 14 months, and the actual will, what they wanted to implement, the anti-Moyes, opposite, inverse of Moyes thing, those two examples aside, we have just been compartmentalising this football club and its future for the past over 25 years. We genuinely have.
No, I know.
We have. And so Sean Dyche is just the latest in, and to be honest, as we just said before about replacing him, I can't see, right now, I can't see him getting sacked because I don't think there's anybody in place with the will or the ability to actually fire him and then pay off all them staff, bring in more staff prior to Friedkin, obviously, that's the caveat to that. But as we stand today, I don't believe that's possible. But the problem is, it's just another Lampard, which was another Benitez. All you're doing is swapping the same thing all around. Our midfield, like you've just said, take the midfield, for example. Every single one of our midfielders, if you take McNeil and Ndiaye out of it, are they midfielders? Probably not. But just let's include them anyway. Take them out of it. The rest of them, you can interchange and still get the same player. That's why when we make substitutions at 65, 70 minutes, we never change the game. Because there's nothing to change. It's just you're exchanging new legs for old legs, or old legs for new legs, by the way. And that's a problem, because what happens is we get through one season, wipe our brow, oh my God, we survived again, and then literally do the same thing again and begin that whole cycle once more. It's self-harm. In any other sphere of life, you need a psychotherapist to sit you down and say, don't you see, step one leads to step two, step three, step four. It's absolutely cause and effect. So back down to him again, and now this doesn't change. I totally agree with you, because I watch them all the time, and it does not change. But I would say the first thing you could change, I've got to back him on this part of it. The long ball thing, which drives me mental to Calvert-Lewin, like I've just said to you there. I think, okay, so what's the alternative? Is that we pass it out from the back? Are we good enough to pass it out from the back? Can we be trusted with a decent side sitting right on top of us, like Brighton did, with pace and power and the ability to change it from the subs bench at 70 minutes when these get tired because they've had pace and power for the previous hour? We can't be trusted. Well, then that problem goes back to the director of football and upstairs and say, well, surely you've been watching what I've been watching for years. This is not an 18-month form issue. This is not even personnel. This is the club. What we say to prospective agents, prospective footballers, they look at us and say, this is a bin fire. You're going to ruin me player, because that's what you're going to do to him, like you did to this fella and that fella and this. Onana ran out the door. Never mind, irrespective of what you believe about Onana or his Everton tenure, Onana ran out the door and into the open arms of Villa fans who still, I believe, I don't keep up with it, but I believe they still like him. But he was like, anything to get me out of there. And that's symptomatic. I'm assuming, by the way, Brandtwaite's going to do the same thing when he does it too. It's unless this freaking fella has got a big ass job. He really has, and it's not just the team. It's the mindset. It's the MO of our looking to
culture in the club,
it's the
mate.
Culture. It is absolutely the culture. Sorry if I went on a bit.
No, but it is a reset. It's got to be a reset because you're right. You just keep doing the same thing. I mean, what I didn't get again, I didn't understand this from the manager, is like day one, Brighton. They were there for the taking, as far as I was concerned. They weren't even great until we got a man sent off and we couldn't get the ball off them because good sides can pass it. But after that game, first of all, he said when we left, it's what we do here, which is I couldn't believe that in any. The one thing you don't, our fans have been unbelievable, unbelievable. Sell out everywhere, sell out at home.
Carried you over the line.
Carried along. Well, be careful what you say. Some people took issue with me when I said that. It was all Dykes, not the fans.
Even here.
But the other thing was he started talking about relegation on day one. Now, this is a team that won 48 points last season. Got as many points as Brighton. Way more than Brentford. Way more than Forest. Way more than Fulham, more than Palace, more than all these teams, and I guarantee you not one of those other teams mention the R word from their own manager, and that has got to be coming from somewhere within the club. But the manager, but other places, the culture, and we have to change it. You're right, the freaking group, if they're going to be the new owners, it looks like they are. They've got a big job. They've got to get people in there who don't entertain relegation
about them, though,
and other things.
From the outside, and I don't know much about them. No, I don't. Yeah. But ostensibly, that's what they do. They do not mess about. No. They do not wait. You have 4 bad results and it's thanks very much out the window. Yeah. Sorry about that. Whoever you are, Jose Mourinho as well, don't care. Thanks, great. Next, please, because that's not going to work. De Rossi.
Yeah.
If you get rid of De Rossi at Roma, you'll get rid of anyone, anywhere. So basically, that is less of a concern from my behalf. I just think I would doubt, I would hope, but I'm not certain that they don't know how big a job this is. It's like the disconnect with the academy, the disconnect with the under-21s, the lack of a standard playing method which you can interchange like all big clubs have these days. We just haven't even addressed those things because the house has been on fire for that long. And so we take comfort, solace in small victories like Crystal Palace and the Bournemouth game. And when we look back on this, it won't be us, we'll be dead and gone, but other people look back, say, after 50 years at Bramley Mortons and do that whole, let's have a look at the last 200 years football club thing. They'll say, what was going on there?
What happened?
Because we live in a time when the games are washed with money. It's literally never known anything like it. Even in the John Moore's Mersey Millionaires days, it was small beer compared to what every single Premier League team's dealing with these days. And we still can't figure it out. So what does that tell you?
Wrong people is what it tells you.
Really, absolutely wrong people. But for an extended period, I'm sorry, the excuses go out the window. It's either it goes beyond self-harm. If you're being hypercritical, you could say, is there an intent there?
That's what it looks like, doesn't it?
Is there some sort of self-defeating prophecy?
The last 8 years since Mashiri got it from Bill Kenwright, like Bill Kenwright kept it like a train set.
Yeah.
He didn't want to let go of it because he enjoyed it. Don't forget, he bought it with the intention, so he said, of getting it on quickly because he didn't want to do it. He wanted to be on the board. And he wanted to do what he did and all that. And he had a big business and he was very, very successful
at that business,
in his other business, wasn't he? And, lauded and all that, and rightly so for what he did there. For the football side of it, he kept hold of it too long, whatever. But when Mashiri got it...
Let's say Usmanov got it.
Or Usmanov, right? When they got hold of it, they didn't put the correct people in place. They allowed it to just carry on. And I don't think you could have handpicked the decision making to be as bad if you would have put a Liverpool fan in charge of it.
I totally agree with that.
Absolutely.
When you put one in charge of the football team.
And the director of football.
And the director of football.
And the CEO. And not Colin Chung, by the way.
But that point, actually, for what I'm not I'm anti-capitalist as a theory, as an ethos, my own. I don't trust billionaires. There's never been a nice one, because you can't be nice to be a billionaire.
Yeah.
That's just a plain fact. But for them to come in, two of them, I don't believe Mercedes is a billionaire. I just think he's like Michael Corleone's lawyer in The Godfather. He's a billionaire because he's Michael Corleone's lawyer.
Well, whatever.
Mercedes' relationship to us created his billionaire status. Without it, he isn't one. Okay. But let's just say there was two of them. And then he come in and he buys this club, and the basis of that he's buying it is that it's underperforming. We're about to move to a new ground, hopefully. We haven't put a stone in the ground at this point, but that's the concept.
That's what they want, yeah.
But the reason you're buying it is the fan base and the loyalty and the history and all that, and you think to yourself, as a venture capitalist, I can make this grow. And if I do make it grow, we live next door, exactly Man City, 15 years ago. You live next door to the biggest club in the world, or one of the biggest clubs in the world, and just by that proximity, if I put it into you, you will get the focus because of that rivalry, and go forward. Yet they leave in place 95% of the underperforming people and leave them still today for the most part. Not everyone, but for the most part. Natural wastage over that period, 8 years or whatever it is. But you'd look at that and think, that doesn't make sense to me. On a fundamental level, that doesn't make sense to me. So, okay, you give it 2, 3, 4, even 5 years and get Carlo Ancelotti as the first team manager. You've literally won the jackpot. So you still don't change it. You don't give him any money. You pay James over and above what he's worth, to be fair. None of us were in the ground, it wasn't. You would have seen a greater reaction to that fact, I believe, of course, should we have been homing away every week. And what does he do? I mean, Kevin Sheedy used to get slagged for not tackling. By the way, you were there, you know this. So, okay, but that aside, you never addressed any of the problems. You let Davide Ancelotti outperform himself with that defence and the numbers, and getting to second or third best defence in Europe for 6 months or more with those that personnel, and you still never threw any money at it. You still never said, what if I did this? You continued to be on the same treadmill for the same thing, and then are surprised when it takes a downward spiral, because that was overperformance. If I've ever seen an Everton team overperforming, that was the overperformance during that period. Because if you look at the careers of those individuals throughout their Everton tenure, it hasn't been like that. That's the apex of it. Literally every single one of them at the same time. So that's the problem. So he goes, the Ukraine war breaks out, he's out of it. Well, ever since then, and that's 3.5, 4 years ago now, the fella's just sat on his hands. And we could have been relegated at least 3 times, twice certainly, possibly 3 times, and it might happen again this season. What's happening? I mean, literally, you are culpable. That's on you. Less so Dyche.
More on me.
No, not you. I'm talking about the royal.
I know. Of course, of course, and that's the. So what do we do now then? Obviously, we've got, what are we on, 12 points from 13 games, or something. We're averaging 0.9 point per game, and we haven't played anyone yet. We've had the easiest start. Apparently,
the easiest start by the end of December.
Paper, no, well that's it now, isn't it? We scored 10 goals. You know, Wolves are below us. They win at the weekend. They go above us because they played the day before.
Decent side.
They've scored double what Everton have scored.
They're a decent side, Wolves. I thought that last season.
I think me and John were talking before, and he reeled off about 12 players who've scored more than 50% of Everton's goals on their own this season. You know, Chris Wood and people like this, who've all got 6 goals, and others, there was loads, to be fair. He was going on and on about it. Everton have got 10. What do we do? Because it feels like everybody knows the manager's getting moved on the minute he's coming in the door.
He knows it.
And he seems to act like he knows it now. But while he's there, the games are we're just chalking games off.
I think what we're going to do, first of all, there is no quick fix. This is incremental progress. If there's ever been an example of incremental progress in history, this is going to be it. So the very first thing you do is get Friedkin in. Get him to sort out the debts, put them to bed. We've got these fixtures in December, which I looked at yesterday or the day before, and there's Wolves at home and Forest at home at the end of the month. Apart from that, with my hand on my heart, I can't see us taking a point from any of them, to be honest with you. We might do, and I'd love us to, and I'll attend all the fixtures.
But if you had to bet, you'd say no points.
I'd say probably not. I'm not a betting man, but
but if you had to,
if it was, I'd say unlikely, because I've watched every other game we played previously this season, and these are better than us. They're not just a little bit better than us, they're a lot better than us. Most of them are a lot better. All of them. So, that being the case, now, once he's behind the desk, and he starts that, get out of town, here's your money, thanks for your service, gone, because he will not suffer. I'll be amazed. His history at other clubs would suggest to me that he'll act quickly. So we need an injection of money, what we can spend, not in the bank, not on the bottom line. We need an injection of money where we can go into the market and improve the playing staff, because ostensibly this is a business based on points in the Premier League. It is based on trophies, obviously, but that's over a greater period. It's ostensibly based on winning games, gaining points in the Premier League. How do we do that? Well, we've got to improve the playing staff, first of all. We get to tactics, we get to manager, we get to a run of fixtures, all later on. But him, behind that desk, he's got to witness how truly clueless we are. And how every week, in the last 5 years, 7 years, they've increased the substitutes to be able to be introduced in Premier League games twice, I believe. And that's because teams, the whole league, has been buying a squad of more than 15 players, often international players or in kind of under 21 standard players. Therefore, they're saying, well, there's no point in having 2 subs, then 3 subs, if you've got all these wasted players. They could have kept it at 2 subs and we'd still be struggling. So I would say that's the first thing you need to do, because we've been in games this season. Bournemouth and Brighton both come to mind immediately, and Southampton actually, whereby we get to a point in the game, we've got a relative foot in the game, apart from the sending off in the first game against Brighton. But at half time, we're doing all right. If you can introduce a bit of pace, a bit of flair, and some solidity, maybe a full-back here and there, depending on what's happening in the 45, 60 minutes, you yourself can counter what they're about to do from their bench. Well, right now we're not. We're just getting suckered. It's like a boxer having an extra arm to fight you in the last 3 rounds, because we keep getting filled in with nothing to whip back with. So I'd say that's what I would do first. I would try and add something to this squad, what's sadly lacking. Secondly, Broja and committee will help, because one's got strength, the other one's got pace. So, and we're lacking on both of those things. Beto kind of touches the first one, but doesn't go anywhere near the second one. That is playing staff we've already got. Get them on the park. Target games, especially home games. That's one of my biggest criticisms of Dice, is that he's basically thrown away his biggest asset, which is the Goodison crowd. And never mind what he says about it, but actually Lampard was the inverse of him. Lampard recognised as soon as he walked in the door. And if you look back at his points, what he won, that's where he won them, 85% of them. So I don't think that'll pass this fella by. Friedkin I'm talking about now. I don't think he won't recognise it. So that'll be another aspect. But after that, it's about getting relegation, the threat of relegation, and putting it in the bin. Because that is literally the nightmare Titanic scenario. Should we go down there and we're playing in a different division? So,
some of the comments, yes, the fear is warranted about relegation. Blue Keely says, with Dyche in charge, 100%, it's a worry. Sick of seeing his smug face on the Daily Live thumbnail. Sooner we get a new manager, the better. Jez says a run rate of 0.9 points per game against Dross. Not really a discussion. about being warranted. Andrew says Deitch is crap, I'm paraphrasing, and will have us bottom of the league by Christmas if he's left in charge. Jez says, I can't really dwell on this manager anymore, so I thought you might be interested in the lunch I've just picked up in London's Petticoat Market. It's a West African mix box. First time and it's superb.
I'm interested.
There you go. There you go. Paul Catzel says, afternoon, lads and fellow Blues. Dyche has dumbed down the fan base and the players to make himself look great. When we stay up, the R word should never ever be mentioned. There's enough talent in this side to make sure we're mid-table comfortably. The sooner he goes, the better. Dyche ball is done at Everton. And he says, oh dear, have you seen the new overlap clip, which still Ryan McNeil deserves an England call-up? He'd do the same as Foden and Palmer in the respective teams, he said. Not convinced about that point of view, but hey-ho. Danny says, definitely this ginger copite is going to destroy the club.
Why did he always have to bring the ginger?
I don't know.
It is. It's
Don't
not
know.
good, Peter.
Don't know.
It's not good.
Don't know.
It's not.
Graham says, welcome back, Dave.
Thank you, Graham.
John Wood says, what do you make of Patterson getting sent off last night? Frustration with the club. Is he now out for the... He's not out for the weekend, but I imagine he's very, very frustrated at the club.
But it was dumb.
No, obviously sheep on the booking and you kick a ball away. Sheepidity, but frustration, I'm sure, is there because some players don't have to train and they play and others aren't fit after 5 months of training. Simon says, aye lads, we don't have a ball in a game, so how can we expect to win it? We're in trouble because we don't win games. Yeah. Matt, from an ownership, director of football point of view, I'm amazed they'd want this negative style of play. It's hugely devalues the players. Brighton have been selling their players for huge amounts of money, despite getting a similar Paul Hoyt haul of points to us.
Good.
Yeah, because their players are encouraged to express themselves.
Fair point.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Simon says the Southampton game should have been the final straw. I'm not having him. There's no one there to sack him. We have an owner and a director of football. Get him gone before it's too late. Blue Keely says, met Dave at a game a couple of months ago after seeing him on the channel. I think it was the Palace game. Sound guy and more entertaining than the game we watch, although that doesn't say much.
I remember that.
Mark says, on the bright side, Amarin will have never seen football like ours before, so we might have a chance. And he's done crying, laughing faces.
That might be true.
That could be. You never know.
That could well be true.
Blue Keely says, I don't get why we don't say to the wingers and number 10, get closer, Dom, when we're going long. No, I'll never understand it. You'd say it to 7-year-olds.
You would.
But,
you would.
Bill says, yes, with this manager we can't win games, heading into a horrific few months of fixtures. If I was to bet the takeover goes through, and shortly after, Dyche will be gone. Yeah, I'd be amazed if he lasts a week.
Actually, I'm not disagreeing with that. I kind of agree with it, actually. But it's the playing staff. If we're talking about this season and the fixtures, like you just mentioned there, we need something else. This is patently not enough. Under investment over an extended period has left us where our options are limited. I've just said to you 2 minutes ago, there's no power, there's no pace. We can't switch up styles. Have we got a style to even switch up from?
No.
Or do we just set up and say, let's see what they do? Because that's what 25% possession looks to me. Look, sit off, see what they do, look to break from there. That's like, oh my God, that's elementary. And I don't mean my dear what. I mean, it's elementary school. It's that thing. So sooner or later we're going to have to talk about, this is not going to be a revolution, it's going to be evolution. So we need to buy players. We need to identify players in advance, whether we get them or not. And we need to start buying players. We might have to sell players to do that. But with this fella, we need to... Revenue streams will arrive with this fella. Did at Roma.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of positive with this ground down here that will happen. But that might be too late. That might actually be too late. Because we might be already out of this division by then. So I want someone to satisfy my existential angst about it and come back and tell me that, okay, it's not good. I've reiterated it's going to be evolution, not revolution, but we might be able to add a couple to just say, in the games that we can win, the tight games, West Ham and Southampton recently, in the last month, they would have been cases in point what I'm talking about. The Bournemouth game, 2-0 up with 10 minutes to go. Bring someone on, scored. Seamus Coleman should have scored, by the way. Was it Seamus Coleman? I can't remember. Someone should have scored.
Yeah, he should have scored.
It was Seamus Coleman hit the keeper with the
The problem was in that, when I watched the whole 90 again after it, a couple of days after it, because I needed to be clear in my mind that it was, the first half was quite even. People have rewritten it to be we were amazing for 80 minutes, right? Yeah. But half time to the 75th minute, we were very good, and we should have put the game to bed. But Tim Abunimi was excellent. About the 75th minute, started not being able to make a 3-yard pass. His legs had gone. Yeah. We had James Garner sat on the bench. James Coleman, Iriola put 5 subs on.
He did.
By the 70th minute, but he put 2 left wingers on Coleman. He put Sinisterra on and he put Uvatara on. He went on Coleman, who 34 years of age, injured. Don't forget, it limped off in the Roma game just a week earlier. Yeah. Right? They put him on, a couple of weeks earlier, sorry. They put the 2 wingers on him. And
it was a week earlier?
No.
Oh, the Bournemouth
not Brighton. Yeah. But he'd only just come back. He trained on the Tuesday and started on the Saturday. So the manager, for me, let the whole thing down, because if he'd have gone, Irabunim's done, let's get James Garner and say to Garner, just sit in front of the back. We're 2-0 up here, by the way, and gone to Roman Dixon, right, or Ashley Young. Ashley Young sat on the bench the whole game, didn't come on. Just go on and replace James, his legs are gone. Yeah. That game would have ended 2-0 to Everton. We wouldn't have scored again. It'd have ended 2-0. And people would have gone good subs there because the game was going away.
Game management.
And he didn't. He sat on his hands. And what happens? Seamus doesn't stop a cross, which they scored the first. Isn't anywhere near the back post cross, which they equalised from. And obviously we get done the other side.
Another idiot.
I'm not putting it all on Seamus. I'm just saying that was a hot day. And they threw 5 subs on.
But another idiom gets thrown around in this game of ours is small margins. Yeah. And they are, what you've just described there, are small margins. But actually, when you get to the end of the season and you're 14 points behind teams that you should be at least as good as, well, now it's becoming a bit more than a small margin. That's a fairly large margin. Well, so it's the problem, the biggest problem, not just the problem, because there's many problems, but the biggest problem with that, what you've just described there, is Einstein said the whole... the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. Yeah. I give you that. I give you that. And now bringing it back to what I just said to you about the window, as somebody who goes to every single game, every single season, my biggest takeaway from the last 5 years, 6 years with COVID aside, is the substitutions. We literally cannot affect the game from the bench.
No pace.
We can possibly... He did it the other day, actually. I think he's done it 3 times since he's been here. Is he left Calvert-Lewin on and brought Beto on? That's because they had 10 men, incidentally.
Oh, yeah.
But we haven't even tried that, and that's probably not going to work. But at least it's something different to what we normally do. Because on the Wednesday, Thursday, when this away team are watching our tapes, they say, just get to 70 minutes. And we'll bring on some subs, we'll change the game, change our shape, and they can't do it. So that's back to Friedkin. What's he going to do? I would say that's what you need to look at, first of all, because this game is evolving right before our eyes, and we aren't. So that's regression. It's not even running to stand still. It's regression. You're going backwards. So... I don't know, I seem to be moaning a lot today.
No, that's just the way everyone's feeling, aren't they? There's excuses and then there's facts that are in front of you. Fact is, Everton have played Brighton, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Brentford and Newcastle at Goodison Park this season. Newcastle came at no strikers, so that was a winnable game.
And missed the penalty.
But it was a winnable game. You had no forwards, we didn't beat them. Fulham, we just allowed them to play their footy and we ended up getting a draw. But the point was, I've just named 6 teams and Everton won one of those home games. That was it.
A draw in 94th minute, didn't
against Fulham.
Yeah.
Right. 1 home win and then 6 points at Goodison. In a place where Everton, that's where your strength comes at home. The crowd, it's full. The crowd are trying. And then the manager saying, well, it's their sort of fault second half because they were nervous. And no one was nervous. Everyone was bored.
I was with them the other day with Colin. I was at Colin Melanie's a very good friend of mine. Colin invited me down, me and Dave Kelly. And the 1878 were putting out the flags. And I know them. I know them personally anyway. So, and I think they're a magnificent organisation, but I know them personally. So I was talking to them on a personal level. And when I saw his thing about that, oh, they get nervous here, allied to his previous comments about that's what they do here when they're walking out the ground. I seen Joe Parkinson after the Brighton game. I was outside the Winslow. And Joe Parkinson I'd seen him before the game, and he looked at me and said, I said, I got off with Kelly's still slagging me for leaving 2 minutes early. And I said, the reason I left early is because I hate booing. I'm not telling you not to do it. I just hate it myself. So I got out the way before it. Yeah. But that's the bit he didn't recognise, the manager. No. Because the reason a lot of people left is that they didn't want to be hearing Everton fans booing Everton players. That's on
There's no one in the ground.
The only person here who's not paying to be here and is actually getting paid a salary, a really good one, by the way, getting paid a salary to sort that out is you. And now you're blaming everybody here who's paying to be here. I'm sorry. Someone needs to put their hand on your shoulder and say, excuse me, even if you think it, you don't say it. Certainly not to the media. Because that's just bad management.
Does it bother you? Because a lot of people say this to me. Does it bother you that he's never called us we and us?
No. Because I've never really felt like it's we anyway.
No, so. But he should be though, shouldn't he?
He should do.
Should be.
But in a list of things that I would change about him, that's about 186, actually.
Give me the 185 then.
Do you want them?
You can give me
you haven't got.
I don't need 185, but you can give me a few.
You haven't got long enough. We'll still be here Thursday.
Well, give me a few.
We've discussed many of them. He's stubborn. The stubborn, I know better than you thing. So, okay, you've known better than us for 2.5 years. You keep telling me that you know better than us, and yet you've just hit me with all them facts. With 19th on this thing,
long ball,
all of that, everything you've just threw at me. So if that was me, and I was doing that, or you, I know you really well, you're my brother, I've known you for 25 years and more. So I'm saying, if that was us, we'd have to say, I've now got to talk the talk, walk the walk, as well as talk the talk. So I've got to examine my own behaviour. Am I doing this?
Is it me? Yeah.
Do I know better than these? Well, I don't. There's an absence of that. And I think that's going to be the ultimate thing, what cost him his job, actually. Yeah. Because the disconnect, Mourinho's made a career out of disconnect. Apart from Chelsea, he's disconnected with every single fan base he's ever been there. Because he's precious. He's that.
Starts well and then it goes.
Well, no, he just believes that he knows better than you, yet he keeps getting sacked. And then someone else appoints him on a crazy salary, and then he keeps getting sacked after that because of the fact that he never buys into the culture and says, maybe I got that wrong. That's the thing about Klopp. I will never mention Klopp in a thing. I don't watch them. You know this. I haven't watched them on the telly certainly since the 90s. I do not pay any attention to that football club. But the one thing about him is he recognised that they were his biggest weapon. So he got them on side. So therefore, when it doesn't go well, you've got leeway.
Do you know what annoyed me about that comments, the Brighton game? Right? I wouldn't have minded if he'd have said, I was disappointed with the fans leaving today. Day one, where are they all going on day one? Yeah. Right? I wouldn't have bothered me that. Right? And it wouldn't have bothered me if he'd have gone. So, see, for me, if he'd have gone, where did they all go? Yeah, it wasn't very good, but where did they all go on day one? Or he'd have said, the other way he could have thingied, and it wouldn't have got any criticism. He could have turned around because he was asked the question. Well, the stadium was nearly empty. He could have said, I'd have left the 3-0 as well because it wasn't good enough.
Is the correct answer.
And then everyone would have gone, is right, you've recognised it. But he didn't. He said, that's what they do here. Yeah. Which is that to me is like the biggest lack of respect ever.
So how do you know
for the fans?
That's what they do?
The fans are there all the time. The fans went and stood at a training ground with bleeding flares for a team that was in the bottom three.
Correct.
To help them. You were there at Watford, Leicester, all of them places, even Arsenal on the last day, and we got our asses handed to us because no one wanted to be there. Yeah. It's not what we do. It isn't what we do. And this thing of like, oh, the boo and all that. No, there's boos now and again when we don't think you put it in. I've sat in that ground, stood in that ground when we've lost derby matches and the players have been clapped off.
I know.
When you put the effort in, you get the rewards. But maybe, just maybe, if things aren't are adding up to be something different, maybe you need to go, hang on, is it me? That thing of, am I the enemy?
See,
do you know what I mean? Take a bit, because Allardyce used to do this. I remember at Wembley.
He's another one. He's
Wembley, when Spurs bounced us 4-0, Trowson's debut at Wembley. And he come out and went, I gave them the game plan and they went and done their own thing. So they got better. If they'd have listened to me, we wouldn't have lost 4-0.
I've just gave you
and this manager's done the same.
Example.
And Mourinho does the same.
And he's exactly the same. Allardyce, when he play well, it's him.
Yeah.
When he don't, it's not him.
Then, yeah.
Well, that's not management. That's not leadership.
No.
I don't give a shit about who's paying you. Mate, you're on millions of pounds. I'm not even going to mention it. I'm talking about Bawley, even Mick Lyons. Those kind of leaders, what I'm talking about here. Peter Reid.
Yeah.
They weren't about, they don't blame you. They blame me first, and then if it's you as well, then they'll blame you.
Yeah,
and that's legitimate, man. That this is a collective enterprise.
I had Aidan Heath was on the podcast the other week. Superb.
Yeah.
I love him, you know.
I know.
And I was saying about one of the questions was like, you know, obviously social media now and how do you deal with the criticism. And he said, Howard Kendall just said to us, be getting criticised. The only way you change it by going and doing it. Don't hit out at people for criticising. You're getting paid. You're honoured to wear that blue shirt, or you're honoured to stand on that sideline in a trackie. Right, getting paid. I'll say it. Getting paid over £5 million a year.
Yeah.
One of the highest paid managers in the Premier League, by the way, for winning no games of football. We'd all swap. We'd all swap in a heartbeat. Dave, you're the Everton manager, £5 million a year, off you go. You go and give it your best. Can you do it? Who knows, right?
Probably.
Right?
I've always thought. I'm just saying, I've always.
But we'd all give it our best, wouldn't we? If you make mistakes, you got to hold your hand up and go, I got that wrong. I've never once heard Sean Dyche ever go, I got it wrong today. Even that Bournemouth game, he didn't have the arse to go, I should have really made changes and I got them wrong. Because then you go, you know what, fair play.
That'll
You've
be
held your hand up.
the petard that he's ultimately hoisted with. But back to Inchy.
And there's a few managers who do it as well.
Back to Aidan, he's a friend of mine. In our film, remember, Sharpie, out of all the stories Sharpie could have told you, as a player for Everton, he began on the couch before he told the tea towel story for the goal against Tottenham.
The goal,
before he told that story, he said, we were sitting in the dressing room and you could hear them upstairs in the main stand. And as soon as Inchy ran up the ring, they'd boo it. Right? So this is a fella who's an absolute, went on to be a legend at this football club. I loved him then, by the way. But my point being, you had Aidan Heath on that couch over there for an hour or more. Did he ever mention? Did he ever mention that to you about the? Because my point being, he never. So my point being, Aidan Heath himself individually, never mind as being within that crazy big ass overperforming collective, himself as an individual going to work realised that he needed to up his game in order to then, if you're going to come back to them, you've got to have something to come back to them with.
Of course you have.
That's the point.
I told him.
Allardyce and Mourinho, always, it's when it goes great, it's me. When it doesn't, and which is more often than not, in the three cases I've just mentioned to you, the three individuals, all of them seem to get a little bit and then fall off a cliff. Never their fault.
The Heat, when she was in, I said to him, I remember we played Chesterfield at home in the League Cup. And I think we'd beat them away. So it's the second leg at Goodison. We beat them 3 or 4-0 or something away, or whatever it was. We beat them away. And I think there was only 8,000 there. I was in the street then, but it was right at the front. Okay. It was quite, you could hear people. Yeah. So Incy jogs out, like warming up. And he comes over to get a ball to doing the thing. And he used to have his, I can see it now. He used to have his trackies, his white socks over his trackies at the bottom. And he'd be warming up. Yeah. Come over to get a ball and some fella just shouted, Inchy, you're fucking shite. Like, this is
he wasn't
7:10.
Yeah.
You know, we're playing the League Cup game and all that. And he just picked the ball up and went, cheers, mate. Yeah. And he just went on warming up. Well, he scored after about 10. He scores in the game straight, you know, and that kind of thing.
Same fella pulled his hamstring at Highbury when he scored the win in the semi-final.
You know, and that fella who said he's shite will be there giving it. Yeah,
pulled the hamstring, getting onto the pitch.
Got Aidan Heath tattoo and all that, you know, and that's it. But they just got in with it. Now, Well, imagine saying that to Sean Dyche or to this
No,
or to
but
the...
it's
Do you know
not-
what I mean? It's
yeah.
not, and no one, you don't want that personal abuse because it shouldn't be there. But you've got to be able to go. You've got to have a bit of retrospect.
Let's take
yourself
this in microcosm and say we're talking about a specific time in the specific tenure of an Everton manager where we, with an exception of maybe, I'm going to say, 15 games for the past 2 years, 2.5 years, I've been out of the bottom half of the table. Maybe not that many games. So if that was you or I, we would then have to say, well, they have got a point on one level. Even if you've got denial culture everywhere around you, you've got to admit that if I could shut that aspect up of them, well, they've got nothing to say. But actually, I haven't shut that up about them. So because we keep losing, throwing points away, this is going to keep coming back at me. So if I really do want to be so precious and immune to criticism, as I seem to think I want to be, I've got to shut that down. Adrian Heath with the booing. I've got to do something myself, vicariously, myself to the players.
Of course.
To get this done, because that's what they're paying me to do.
I mean, someone's just said, is LCAB old enough to be at the Coventry game with 13,000? I was there as a kid. There was 2 Coventry games, 13,000.
Thanks for that.
13,
He doesn't look it.
13,000 at Christmas.
Love you.
Hey, 13,000 at Christmas was 4,000 more. Was at the league. There was 9,000 at the League Cup game in October when we were getting beat 1-0. Adrian Heath, Graham Sharp scored. Well, that Chesterfield run.
Howard said to me, "Can you name them?"
The Chesterfield run was the start of the League Cup, which you got to the final of the Milk Cup.
I know.
And them fans are there, and we were there for the Coventry game. I was in the street end, and Sharp scores injured. Heath comes on, Reed. We win.
Still got it, by the way.
And all of that, you know what I mean? And that's what it's about. We beat Forest on the Saturday one. Forest on the Saturday one. Andy Gray's debut. Let's
keep with this just for a second. Is that you asked me 5 questions ago about Freaking and what can he change? Well, after the January window and putting at least something in place for it to change both the first 11 and specifically from the substitutes bench from January to the end of the season, that's the second thing that changed. If you do not change that culture, what you described, excellent way to put it, by the way, and the mindset which losing begets losing, and it runs through. It's infectious. The same as winning, actually, the inverse, but the same principle. It begets losing, and we are that used. We're becoming punch drunk. That's what we are. I'm sick of it.
If you were a player in that dressing room and you heard the language the manager uses, as in these aren't good, he's basically saying, what do you want us to do? The only way to make this team better if I go out and buy players.
I would say, again, I'm going to mention the film, and it wasn't my intention. But in Howard's way, the main takeaway from that movie, if you take into you as a point, Brian Marwood, it was the loyalty. It was about war for one for all, win or lose. 86. Other teams would have fired him just because we just lost the double to our local rivals when we should have won it. By the way, both times.
Yeah.
Other teams would have done it. Man United might not have held out and thought, what I've got here is an excellent football team. He might have run his race last year, might have hit the bar. This is a psychological blow you may never recover from, as it turned out he did. We didn't know that at the time, and he could have moved them on. It's about, we don't seem... If you don't learn your lessons, you never learn a lesson. So back to what you said about the players, I don't think they believe it, but I don't think they believe Lampard nor Benitez either. So I think the player who's now got an agent, which none of those players we've just been talking about ever had. It was just them and the manager, and then talking to the chairman, incidentally. Different culture, different mindset altogether around that. I think their agent just says, go in there and out there. You know you're better than that. That's what I'd do if I was one of them agents. And I don't think... But also, if we're going to talk about that, the coaching staff, So they look at the fact that we underperform with regards to the percentage and how many set pieces we haven't scored from, how many set pieces the opposition score from. And do they have a meeting and say, we're patently underperforming here? The manager's not even present in this room.
Yeah.
Are we doing it? Is it us? Are we contributing? Because I'd want that.
Yeah.
In a winning culture,
You'd all
that's
do
what
it.
happens.
Of course you do it. Of course it
That's
is.
Colin Harvey would have had them. Let Howard go to Chinese with the players, and he'd have had everyone else in the room saying, "Listen, this is on us.
Yeah.
As much as it's on them, it's on us.
No.
There's none of that ownership.
There seems to be no team.
There's none of it. There's the culpability aspect of it is completely absent. Well, again, Friedkin needs to address that, in my opinion.
Terry says, before the ball was kicked, I was not in the least bit concerned about relegation. Now it's very much at the forefront with regards to the lack of style, system, or however you want to paint it. It's dreadful in every way. The sooner the better for changes within this dysfunctional club. Rob, the East Belfast Toffee, says a question for you, lads. Who do you think Friedkin will bring in as a manager? Not who you want him to bring in. Who do you think they'll bring in?
I have got no clue. I literally don't know what kind of market he would be shopping in, to be honest. So
Brian says, good to see Dave in 5 Fettle again. Hakon says, Pep must be tired of Man City, who need to tighten up their defence. Can't we start a movement to send Dykes to Man City? And Pep comes this way as payment.
Pep, are you coming to from Man City? Oh, Pep.
Pep, not
oh,
Pep.
Sorry. See what I did there?
That's what you know.
I'm too quick for them.
We'll have Pep.
Try and catch up. I'm too quick for them. It's all right. You carry on.
Robert's dog says, I don't know what that is. Blue
You're
Keeley.
there, Peter.
Blue Keeley says, great show as always. Thanks for the daily Everton therapy session. Robbo says, Bazzi's hardly making the players want to prove him none. No, they pulled it out the bag at the end of the season, but they hate him. You can see it.
That is like going back to what Dave was saying before about teams and loyalty to each other. It's clear. Nathan Patterson, right? So Nathan Patterson is a kid who's been fit now for a month, I'd say. Played in the under-21s last night. Probably some frustration there, but I don't know. I wasn't there, didn't see it. But you're going to need him in the next month.
Correct.
All these games when you've got a 40-year-old right back. You're going to need him.
Of course you are.
Why would that lad, and I mean this in the broadest of terms, forget about what we think play should be for a football club.
Yeah.
Why would that lad go and pull like everything out for this football club and for that manager? Like, why would you do it? Like, he should have played the last half an hour on Saturday just from a tactical point of view. But if you're him, and whether people like this or not, it's the same with Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin plays every game and watches the ball just get thrown at him. Why would he run around like a lunatic? Why would all these other players that have been isolated and pushed to the side and never come on? If you get that opportunity now, because it's like, oh, you've got to play, I'm down to my 4th choice, why would you be asked? Like, I wouldn't. I generally wouldn't be. If I had no association with the football club and I got treated the way this manager's treated some players, I wouldn't be asked. I just wouldn't be asked.
You see it at loads of clubs. You see the players just switch off from the manager, and you start looking at them going, the damn players look at like
you said Ten Hag before.
Ten Hag,
example.
Look at them.
But how would you like?
Rude and this man, this like took over. They won the next.
I have a slight disagree with what Dave said before, but I don't think he was saying it was on the list very far down. But the we thing, I do think that, and you said it with Klopp. I do think it creates it creates a where all this is together thing, and that does annoy me.
So, but it didn't save Lampard,
no,
and that was my point. It was, but to leave it in the shed when you've literally the evidence before your eyes, taking that Brighton game, and the fucking place is 2/3 empty with 10 minutes to go. Well, then you yourself. Go back and see your half fella. I don't know if his half fella's alive, but imagine my father isn't. But if he was sitting in my living room, he'd say, "You've got to look at yourself. I'm sorry, you're an individual going to work. No matter what your job is, if that's happening to you, you've got to examine yourself because you might be not deluded, but you might be too busy with all the
can't
other
see the wood
problems
for the trees.
to maybe can't see the wood for the trees is a brilliant idiom for it. You might have to do that, and I don't think there's that. He's been in a comfort zone at his previous club, particularly, where he's just looking at them saying, "Well, what do you want?"
Well, what do you think of his comments on Saturday that said this is like, it's the same job as Burnley. Everton's the same as Burnley.
I would put my foot up his arse just for that one comment, actually, to be honest. I would, honestly. But we've won... Anyway, I don't want to go there.
Someone said to me Saturday, I don't think you've heard this, but someone said to me after the match on Saturday, people were moaning in the toilet, and he said, 17 is amazing for Everton this season. And he said, Dyche should be a hero if he gets us 17th. He's amazing. Then he said, when we get to the new stadium, he'll change and be an attack-on manager and everything will be great. And I was like, what are you talking about?
I gave you the definition of insanity. But from Einstein before, I'd like to withdraw that comment and now apply it to that person doing that.
Yeah.
Because
There are
also,
those people.
Insanity stroke, unbelievable, astounding optimism.
And he's about 10 years older than me, so he's seen 15 years older than me, so he's seen some. Or he had a bad paper.
That's worrying though, isn't it, within the fan base that people do think like that? That think either he can change, because he can't change. He's got nothing about him. He's not a good coach.
About whether he can or he can't. I don't think he wants to.
No.
I don't think he's got any
you just
intention
said
of
it
doing
there.
it
Because you do it now.
You'd have already done it last season.
You've just said it there, right? He's at Burnley, and he'd done a good job at Burnley because he didn't have money, right? And he kept them up in the league. But 17th was his Champions League place because he didn't give him a big budget, so he'd done well with what he had, and that was what he was successful in. So if you're doing a job for a number of years, and you're doing it a certain way, and I keep patting you on the back, going, brilliant, Dave, brilliant, Dave, brilliant, Dave, and you move jobs, and now you're on way more money.
Yeah,
the job's more complex, but you're on way more money. You're not going to do the job differently than what you've been doing it for 10 years because also, you think you've been successful doing it a certain way.
But the fan base there, because they were that grateful to be back in the Premier League, they were, I'm not going to say mute, but they were muted. If you walk to the ground at Burnley, not Parker Coach, right outside the away end, there's a pub on the right-hand side called the Royal Dyche. So if Howard gets a pub finishing 16th, we've now built a palace in the sky for him for what he actually did do for us. So that's the difference in expectation. So once you go from and this is not any reflection on Burnley, I'm just trying to give you an example. You've gone from being on the tills at the Asda to being in a Harvey Nicks on the buying as a fashion buyer. You've gone up in expectation. It's not about a comparison between the two clubs.
No.
It's about what people will say to you when you do your everyday job. And that's the point why I don't think he wants to change, because he believes he's got some justification in doing that, because they have been happy for the most part of his managerial career doing it. He's just looking at us as if we're the problem. When I don't believe we are the problem. I think the marriage of the two things, that's the problem. And I don't think he's a long-term fit for Everton, but I don't think that's the only problem either. I don't think getting rid of Dyche is only... It's about a seventh or an eighth of getting what's wrong with this club actually sorted out, because none of us have got any idea who's likely to replace him. None of us will be saying, I don't know how many players we've got. Let's say it's 22. Out of those 22 players, 15 of them are likely to be here under the next manager. So then, therefore, I'm just taking...
12 are out of contract and most won't be there.
Okay, that's actually relevant.
Couple might stay.
But my point being, for the last three managers, that's been the case.
Yeah.
All right, well, there's a question for you then. There's a question for you, because this is something we were discussing yesterday with Mike when we were talking about managers, is do you go for a manager who takes those players and tries, like you said before, 4 years, and obviously you go from those players to a new set of players, or do you do what we keep doing, which is you bring a manager in for the players?
No, because that's what the last three have done, and that hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So I'd say no. I'd say the first option.
Yeah.
But with that, then let's inverse that conversation we just had about Dyche. The day we do that, the day that happens, which could be in the near future, the day that happens, the focus is now on the fans.
Yeah.
We need to ourselves understand that if we do this again, and I remember Ancelotti getting chased out saying, "You dinosaur, you've got no idea what you're doing." There's all social media's going to have people kicking off. That's just the way it is. Just the way it is. So, but the majority of this fan base, I've got to understand that this is going to be an hard road. It's going to be a long-ish road, not necessarily a long road, but it's not going to be overnight
not
sensation.
A quick fix, is it?
It's like I said before, it's evolution, not revolution. But I would take that over jobs for the immediate next 10, 20, 30 games every day of the week, because all we're doing is repeating the same mistakes over again.
Definitely. Paul Corrigan, David Feely, his name is. Says he missed the introduction.
Oh,
he loves you, but he doesn't know you're at.
Yeah. That's me.
There you go. Moyes.
LCAB on Twitter.
On Twitter. You're on Blue Sky, yeah?
I am. For a week, but
it's good. It's good.
Blue Sky, better.
Well, it's not Trump, so I'm digging it.
There you go. Alex says Southgate, Moyes, Potter and Corberan are top 4 in the betting to replace Dyche.
Southgate just said today that he's not even going into footy. He's put some on LinkedIn. He's going into the post office or something, I believe.
He couldn't be with our fans.
Our fans would eat him alive in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we wouldn't want him anyway, will we?
Not really.
Celtic Vape says Newcastle and Villa did it. Why not us? Well, no one's saying you can't do it. Dave's not saying you can't do it. What he's saying is, though, I think what he's saying, putting words in your mouth, you've got to, and I think this is what Ped's saying, you've got to bring everyone together. And that is an understanding from us as the fan base. You've got to know what you're bringing in. If you just keep bringing in, looking at a squad and going, oh, Sam Allardyce will sort this for a few months and then we'll think further down the line.
Yeah.
That's never, we're just going to be here again next year. So if you're making a decision, say it was Thomas Frank, say it was Graham Potter. I'm using Potter because he's out of work, right? Yeah. If it was Graham Potter, we'd have to go, right, they've chosen him. We know he's a good coach. He mightn't be amazing, but he's a good coach. We have to get behind him. Stop him fighting. We've got to realise that it's evolution, not revolution.
Those teams
see where
that
we go.
Lad just mentioned, I didn't catch his name. Villa and Newcastle.
Celtic
both had to do that.
Yeah. Newcastle got Eddie Owen from Steve Bruce, so it was a bit like now.
Absolutely, both times.
Wasn't it?
Both times.
It was a bit like now.
Emery at Villa was predominantly changing a little bit now. But when he came in, it was Gerrard's squad. Yeah. Gerrard's underperforming squad, it was. There's a trust aspect, but you do not appoint those two managers to get you through the next 18 months. You do it to take you to the next level, and the trust and the belief, and that's
but you don't
what I'm
discount
trying to say.
them. You also don't. I'm not saying you're doing this, by the way.
Yeah.
You don't discount them because you think, I'm unsure about him at this stage of the season. You can't do that because if you truly believe he's the right man,
what you've got to do is as well, and I think this is looking back at the managers. And the only one who was this kind of manager was Marco Silva. But so if you've got a Marco Silva, you've got to sit down and say to the fan base, someone at the club. So it should have been Marcel Brands, and Silva should have done it. And we said many times, the club botched it. We were due to have an interview with Marco Silva, and the club completely botched it. And I'm not saying that we would have kept Marco in a job and all that, but I'd like to have heard Marco Silva talk to us. But the club messed it up.
Also, all of those.
But if you heard the plan, Dave, if you heard the plan and the manager came out and said, and someone at the club, like a director of football, said, this is the plan, it's going to take 4 years, we need a little bit of patience from you, there'll be ups and the downs, but this is the plan. No, we're just trying to stay in the Premier League. This is the plan. Every year we'll try. We have got the money. Don't go mad. We're not going to go out and spend all kinds of mad money. We're going to do it properly. We've missed out on 4 or 5 targets because we just didn't have a little bit more money, but we've got it now. Trust us, have patience, there'll be off days. And all the way down the road, that manager and director of football keep communicating with the fan base.
That's the actual,
keep communicating with us.
That's the issue I was going to comment on.
Go on.
It's got to be joined up thinking. It's got to be where we already know the targets we're going for in advance. That Machidi money, we spunked it, man. We literally did. So looking out and blaming everybody else. No, I'm sorry, you at the top of this football club have got to put your hands up and say we've got to accept some culpability on that, because we did cost him. And from what I've seen from Fulham the other week, They've got no superstars,
No.
but they've got players with pace, can drop the shoulder, can break the
Good
lines.
football
They've
side.
got a decent side, and he can bring off from the bench. None of those things apply to us.
No, nothing.
None of those
Nothing.
things apply to us.
Alan Cale says it's just the professional attitude to look inward when stuff goes wrong first. Get your own house in order before you criticise other
Didn't he
people.
say? Didn't he say when he came in, or around when he came in, that if there was ever a time he was in trouble, he acted like the manager he would be replaced with?
Yeah.
Well, you're getting replaced by Pep, so fucking sort it out.
Pep's going to be our new manager.
Dan says buying players isn't necessarily the answer, although it's welcome and exciting. For me, Dyche is living the dream every day. He has the opportunity to coach Everton and forge a coaching identity which you could use the past as a blueprint of, and last season at Goodison as a melting pot. Instead, it's nuts and bolts, and I've got 400 games experience. Such a wasted opportunity. And James says, we're not as bad as only 2 wins. If he stays till the end of the season, we're in a real battle for safety. Change the people. The longer it goes on, you start looking at Thelwell. I think he's done a decent job on recruitment, but now you have to look at the way we're playing. And if he's happy with that, then shake his hand in the summer.
Can't disagree with it.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Again, I mean, few people. Terzic, I'd love Terzic. I would. He's available at the moment. Lee Carsley.
Carsley would be a shout on the basis that Lee Carsley would be an excellent bridge from the Mashiri era into the Friedkin era because of the fact that A, he's a decent coach, B, specifically young players in this country and other countries
He knows.
expect to be Jesus out of him, and 3, that he's a mad toffee and he would get us right on side because he knows the right things to say at the right time.
And I think he's quite sort of level-headed as well. He doesn't get too high or too low, and I think he'd be good.
And he's got a wonderful line and repartee, so he can deal with the media. He doesn't get stressed by it.
Yeah.
And I think...
And he hasn't got any hair, so he can't lose his hair and look older
Let's
than he
not say
does.
that. That weren't me. That was him.
No, but I'm saying he won't look. You know the way they do the things, don't look how much they've aged. He wouldn't do that with Carsley.
But I think he would be an excellent bridge appointment. Not saying that that's all he would be, but as a transition from one mindset to the other mindset, he would be actually ideal. And given that he loves that under-21 job, and the Irish would literally saw their arm off to get him to be their manager, irrespective of who's in the position today, they would literally love him to do that. But it might, in the back of his mind, seem like a regressive step going back to the under-21s when he's basically just introduced most of his best players to the full internationals and have to start again. Everton will always come calling when you've got a heartstring like what he's got, what you've got, and everybody else in this room have got. So I'd say that if ever there was it'd have to be under totally different circumstances. Friedkin would have to be here. There would have to be a potential of spending money because it's not about buying new players for new players' sake. It's about buying new players so we don't end up at the bottom of the league every year. And some will be retained. Some can be coached to be better.
Of course they can.
So that's not. We're not.
To be honest, Dave.
Either.
To be honest, this team should be between 11th and 14th.
Halfway up.
Squad easy.
Halfway up.
And that's just good coaching.
Halfway up.
The thing what I'd say as well is, if you're making that decision and going right, we're bringing in players, we've got to bring in better players, and people are going, well, I'm not sure. The easiest thing to wonder why Everton are where they are, go and look at Everton's squad in 2020 and look at Everton's squad today.
Correct.
The quality has just been cut away, which means the goals have dropped, the levels dropped, the coaching level is way off because it was Marco lost 3 games and got sacked.
I know.
And this,
but that's
3 games on the run. Sorry, 3 games on the run.
That's in a capitalist society. That's symptomatic. I said before, if you're not going forward, you're not even running to stand still. You're regressing.
No, you're not.
As soon as you regress in this business, in this league we play in, other teams, the likes of Fulham even. That speaks volumes, and I'm not taking them specifically. I'm just adding them as an example.
They did once have a statue of Michael Jackson outside the ground.
Other people, they did. Anyway, but Fayed put it there, and that's an even bigger... Let's delete all of that conversation. My point being that as soon as you regress, other teams will then come and apply predatory behaviour on your
you.
better players,
Yeah.
that's on you. You know when you sign them, you've got to get better. Otherwise, people
They're
are
gonna
going to
come.
come and buy them. That's the point about... If we don't improve this playing staff, we'll still have natural wastage. There will still be overperformers where Champions League clubs come in with a crazy amount of money and buy them. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, of course.
But what you don't want is where what you said, where the level goes from 2020 down to where we are now, and we don't add anything back.
Yeah.
Because all we'll do is keep
Well, we're
regressing.
gone, aren't we?
And then sooner or later, if you keep rolling them dice, we will drop out of this league.
Right, last question, and then you can plug what you need to plug.
Okay.
Glenn, Dave only question. If we use a Shawshank Redemption analogy,
Okay.
are we Andy Dufresne crawling out of the Shawshank prison through a tunnel of crap? The worst behind us and the light at the end of the tunnel. But my worry is that we haven't even made it to the tunnel yet. Have we made it to the tunnel, Dave, or what?
Well, it hasn't been announced, has it? So I'd
no.
say no. I'm not saying no. I'm saying put a pin in it. Let's take a scenario where Friedkin was appointed or took over, got the keys yesterday. I'd say, yeah, we are. And the majority of the hate is already behind us. But with that December fixture list and no additions in January, and maybe, possibly, hopefully not, but fucking hell, with our luck of the last few seasons, 2 or 3 injuries, particularly to the goalkeeper, actually, in the next 5 months, we could really be in trouble. So I can't say that we're about to break out into the great wide blue sunlight,
No.
but I would suggest that Friedkin is not a fool. Very few venture capitalists are fools, with the possible exception of Usmanov and Bashiri. The rest will see that in this business, it's about players on the pitch, and players on the pitch win you points. You need goals, you need attacking potential, and you need to be able to defend and win the ball back. All of those areas could do with strengthening at this football club.
Superb. Right, go on then, give me your plugs.
First of all, fan support and food banks.
Yeah.
Please, it's at Anfield as well as Everton, but particularly at Goodison. It's on the corner of the park end, next to the fan zone. Please, this is for our community, local people. So if you're walking past, bring an item, bring a bag full of items, but certainly bring an item. Peter is a regular visitor all the time. Fair play to him for that. I'm saying, recognise it, recognise that it's our own, doing for our own. This is about what we do as a football club as much as what we do politically. Ian Byrne is the MP for West Derby. He's a cop-out, he's a home and away cop-out actually, but he's there with us. It's about solidarity. Let's begin to sort our own from our own. Secondly, stop exploiting loyalty. The reason I'm in here now, today, as opposed to, not that I haven't been in here 100 times before, but the reason I messaged you recently is that I've done a protest. Stop Exploiting Loyalty is a Football Supporters Association initiative whereby particularly London clubs, Arsenal, Tottenham and West Ham specifically, but once that starts, in this league, what happens? They start, all the concessions are getting knocked in the head, so kids won't get it, pensioners won't get it, so they'll be paying full whack, and we're just about to move down to a supermodel football ground. So this isn't about us, as it's more an existential thing. So it's about standing alongside our brothers and sisters in the Premier League to say, you're not on. You've taken our game and you've prostituted our game, if the truth be told. You've got to, in order to, I watched someone sent me, I think it was Ian Byrne sent me about if you need, I don't watch football on the telly because I prefer to watch it in the ground. That's a personal choice. If you want to watch this game every week in the Premier League, you need to have 3 separate platforms. Now that's wrong on a number of levels. So back to the protest. This is about every week every second week, ostensibly, we go away from home. We join the home fans who have got a 50-foot banner with hashtag Stop Exploiting Loyalty, and we are filmed holding that banner with them in order to demonstrate solidarity. That's what we do, and we'll be doing it at Man United on Sunday. Finally, my granddaughter, Coco Jean in Australia, my very best girl, you know that every time I'm on the telly, you say, why didn't you mention me? Well, I'm mentioning you now. My very best girl. Love you,
Look
baby.
there, do it down this camera here.
Up the Toffees, child.
Say it again to her,
Up
tell her
the
there.
Toffees, Coco G, my very best girl, my very best granddaughter. You know this. Look at me now. Up the Toffees, gaga. There you go. I'm done. Oh, one last thing.
Keith Mullen, sure.
Keith and the Farm have got a new single, Forever Never. Check it out on streaming sites and pay the money to buy it. Thanks very much for coming.
Right, that's good. Robbo says, Baz, shout out Peacock TV sailors on £16.50 for a year for the Premier League.
Well, the Premier League have just got rid of IMG.
What does that mean?
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's all the overseas stuff. So they're going to a one app thing in 2 years.
In 2 years.
Overseas.
For
We won't
overseas.
get it for 5 years.
We can surely VPN it.
What's a
Might get it.
VPN? What's a VPN?
There you go.
That lad's in
Listen.
jail. We don't know what he's talking
No, I
about.
haven't got a clue.
That lad's doing porridge. We
Lads
don't know what
doing
he's talking
porridge,
about.
but people in the BBC have
Yeah.
hard drives haven't been checked.
Correct.
I've
There
got
you
all
go.
the matches on the hard drive.
Yeah, just
Okay,
store, just store
Just
matches
to
on the
clear
hard drive. Yeah, some cracking performance from the younger teams. If you should get back in soon, lots of people.
I will
would
get in
love it.
soon. One last point. When
Go
I
on,
said about
go
to
on.
stop exploiting loyalty,
Yeah.
the reason what I was saying, why I came in, is that I was at Ipswich, Southampton and West Ham, and their fans said to me, why don't you go on Toffee TV anymore? I was
Because he
like,
doesn't come in.
No,
This is
just
not
1 second.
personal.
I
Come
was
on.
like, how do you know that I went on Toffee TV? You're a West Ham fan, you're a Southampton fan, you're an Ipswich
Because all
fan.
the comments are here.
There
about
you
them.
are.
Forest,
So
Spurs,
that's
every
what
day.
made me say,
Everyone watches us.
do you know, this is the point. So basically I went, do you know, I said to Keith, we need to get back in. And he's got this new job and it's a little bit
Well, he's
still...
the top guy now,
He's
isn't
the
he?
top guy at Liverpool, yeah.
Listen.
He's busy, but otherwise he'd be alongside me. He normally is alongside
All
me.
I would say is come for the Everton chat, stay for the cable knit.
That's it, mate.
That's all I'd
Fisherman.
say, you know what I mean? Marks and Spencer's Christmas advert,
Listen,
this, mate.
He's either,
I'm the eye
he's
candy.
either a
I'm
fisherman
the eye candy.
or a university lecturer.
Oh,
and you
that
are
is both.
intelligent enough
Thank
to
you,
be
that's
it.
a
Casual Christmas
And the eye
party, where
candy.
that?
There you go.
Ladies, on my new blue sky thing, LCABBABEH, boom.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Like,
Thanks for having me.
subscribe, do all that stuff. Are we doing more than a game at half two?
Yeah.
More than a game at half two, general footy chat. The link, is the hyperlink going to be there?
All there,
It's
all
there.
done, I've
Get yourself a drink. And join us at half two to talk about other clubs who go forward and shoot and pass it.
I'll be
See you
gone.
later. Bye.